And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another IATEFL Live. I'm Sean, and we're here to give you some IATEFL news and introduce to you more of our ambassadors. So I hope everybody's well and looking forward to this live stream. Let's begin, as always, though, by bringing in John and finding out what's going on in IATEFL at the moment. Hi, John. How you doing?
Hi, Sean. Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm all right. As you said, I'm looking sporty.
You are. You're looking like
trying
a
to
teacher, if I may say so.
trying to give the sporty look for a change. Anyway, John.
Sorry, I shouldn't be talking about that. I should be talking to everybody about IATEFL events. Gosh, we're nearly at Christmas now, and the end of the year, but there are still, I think, about 7 events still left to run between now and Christmas. So if you are interested in joining any of our IATEFL webinars, I think all of the events between now and Christmas now are online, then jump onto our website, onto the events page, and you can see and pick through those that are of interest to you. And get a little dose of professional development between now and Christmas. And then, of course, well, we keep saying it, but in the new year, then it's the real countdown to the Harrogate Conference, which is running from the 18th to the 21st of April, 2023. I think the key date that we're going to start talking about now is the early bird deadline, which is the 11th of January. And that really is an important one. If you want to get a lower price for your registration, there's a huge benefit to registering before the 11th of January in terms of price. Whether you're a member of IATEFL or a non-member, it doesn't matter. It's a good idea to benefit if you're in a position to, and if you can, before the 11th of January, and prepare yourself for the excitement of Harrogate, which we're all busy preparing for and looking forward to.
It's amazing how quick these things come round, isn't it? It's like Friday.
Absolutely.
And we probably won't have thinking where the 11th of January is. There probably won't be a live stream before then, given it's almost Christmas, etc. So if you are watching this on recording, do make a note in your diary. If you're watching it live, do it now. If you're watching the recording, 11th of January is the end of the early bird deadline. So if you are thinking of coming to Harrogate, it's really important to note that down. Obviously, if you miss it, you can still register for the conference, but it's going to be more expensive. So take these days we're all looking to save money where we can. So make a note of that as you come out of Christmas. Get ready. Go to the IATEFL website and register if you want to come to Harrogate. And we were just saying off before we went live. I think all of us were saying Harrogate is, I think, one of our favourite venues for the conference because.
Gorgeous.
It is. I like the fact, and I'm sure we'll talk about this after Christmas in some of the live streams, but Harrogate, I think, is the most compact of all the places we go. So, the whole place just feels like it's
right in the centre of the town as well, so it's easy access. The other thing to look out for in the very near future is that we will be announcing our plenary speakers for Harrogate. So look out on our website and on social media as we announce that in the very near future.
Yeah, they're there. Obviously, we know who they are, but the news they're coming out soon. And after Christmas, we will of course dedicate most of the live streams into the build up of the conference and the things that are going on there. And having just had a catch up about the conference at the weekend, it does look like it's going to be as good as ever. So remember, 11th of January. If you want to take advantage of the early bird deadline. Anything else you want to talk about, John, or are we?
No, that's it from me. We'll be delighted to know everybody. Let's get on to more important things.
More important things. So if we could, so we'll get rid of John in the nicest possible sense. Bye bye. And we will bring one of the IATEFL live team back. Hi, Georgia. How you doing?
Hello, everybody. Hello, Sean. Hello, John. I'm so excited for IATEFL next year. Every time I see John and he talks about IATEFL, I cannot wait.
Yeah, it's quite you because you're so looking forward to being locked in a room for 24 hours a day, broadcasting live things. So obviously, Georgia will be in Harrogate with me and the team, where we will be bringing you things live from the conference, interviews and stuff. And of course, some of the people we meet at the conference will be the ambassadors. And Georgia is here today to introduce the two more of the ambassadors to us. So let's take me out of here and let's bring in Sarah and Evan. You are now live on screen. And Georgia, over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sean. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Also, they usually say don't meet your heroes, but I have to just say straight away now that Sean has given me the opportunity to meet 4 of my ELT heroes last month with Sandy Milley and George Pickering, and this month with Sarah Mercer and Evan Frendon. So welcome to IATF Alive.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So before we start, for anyone watching from home and doesn't know who you are, can you tell us a few things about yourself? Sarah, let's start with you.
Okay, yeah, my name's Sarah Mercer. I started off life as a language teacher, working in Germany and then working in Austria in schools. And then I moved to the university and carried on being a language teacher at uni. And then eventually I have moved over into teacher training and teacher education. I primarily research areas to do with the psychology of language learning. So that's things like motivation, self-concept, identity, well-being, all those kinds of things. And I live in Graz in Austria.
Oh, lovely. And Eva, what about you?
Hi, everybody. I'm a teacher, trainer, author based in Berlin in Germany. So I'm a freelancer. But my world is very different to Sarah's. I work in corporate language training, which means that I'm working in companies mostly in Asia and Europe. So flying in and out, running courses, certainly before COVID, writing materials for companies, writing materials for mainstream publishers. But nowadays, more and more consulting and flying in, having discussions with people, advising on course design and things like that. So that's where I am at the moment.
Lovely. And how has English for specific purposes changed over the years?
Well, it's yeah. I think this could be an hour's talk here. I think the main thing, of course, is that certainly in my world of corporate language training, time is short. Budgets are being cut all the time. So those are the 2 big pressures. And technology means that we can do a lot of things which we couldn't even dream about doing 5 years ago. So, when you go into companies, they're looking at things like micro-learning. So people don't have time to go to language training anymore like they did when I was young. So they do everything on apps in between things. We're looking at trying to leverage training so that it happens with other sorts of training. So you might do your sales training in English and then have the 2 together, a bit like EMI in the university world. All these things are happening at a breakneck pace. So I think that's where we are at the moment. English for the workplace. Yeah.
I have to admit that when I first started teaching business English, your book, How to Teach Business English, was one of my go-to books. So it has given me a clear path into this world. And what would you say is new in the business English world then?
Well, I have to say, first of all, that when I wrote that book, How to Teach Business English, which I was immensely proud of at the time, one of the best feedback comments I got on it was, Evan, an optimistic title. How to Teach Business English. And that has lived with me and has been the best feedback I've ever had in my life. I mean, for me, ESP, Business English, these are all really, they merge into the same thing. ESP sometimes gets used more for the academic side of things, but really it's all about doing needs analysis and doing whatever the client or the learner needs you to do. So business English, can we define it? ESP, can we define it? I think there's a lot of research going on in things like English as a lingua franca now, BELF, business, or English as a business lingua franca, which is really changing the way we think about how languages are used. And I think in 5 or 10 years' time, we'll be looking at testing and published books completely differently to how we look at them now. Because what we're finding is that we're not delivering really what needs to be delivered in terms of the big parts of our industry. So that's where I think we are at the moment. A lot of change happening.
That's very interesting. And now going back to Sarah, and Sarah, you've written one of the books that have really inspired me, and that was Teacher Wellbeing. So what made you first identify the need for well-being in the ELT industry and openly talk about it?
And that's actually a good question, because of course we wrote that book and we started, my team here in Graz and I started researching the topic long before the pandemic. So the pandemic obviously affected people's well-being visibly. So the topic suddenly became the center of attention and everybody started talking about it. But, this book was written 2 or 3 years before the pandemic happened. So, but it came really because I was interested in learner psychology and how learners approach learning. And I took a particular lens to understanding the classroom and what was happening in the classroom, which was more complexity based. And then you realize that everything comes back to the teacher. The teacher is the emotional and relational hub in the classroom. Everybody has a relationship with the teacher. And so I became interested in understanding teacher psychology and discovered that we just haven't researched teacher psychology to the same extent that learner psychology has been researched. So for obvious reasons, all the attention was on learner-centeredness. SLA is about acquisition processes, so focuses again on learner and acquisition. And the teacher is, if anything, just seen as a variable. It's just something that affects the learner, but the focus is really on the learner and what the learner achieves. And the approach to the research that I was doing made it very clear that actually, in psychological terms, the teacher's at the center of it. And then it was just a natural step from there that I started to look more closely at how teachers were experiencing their professional lives. And well-being was the topic that then bubbled to the surface very quickly. And so we became much more interested in understanding, what contributes to well-being, what are the stresses, but also what are the strengths, the positives, the uplifts, what are the resources teachers draw on, and how all of that kind of fits together. And then the pandemic just cast further light on how important this topic is. And let's hope that it stays a central topic to understand moving forward.
Exactly. I was going to actually ask you this question because I think that the moment your book was released, I think that it was perfect timing. And I fell in love with the book and the tasks that you have inside. And then I was thinking, but is this something that we as teachers and our students are going to continue talking about, meaning our mental health?
I very much hope so. So I think that's a little bit of my concern at the moment is that the book publication date, bizarrely, is March 2020. I mean, you could never have anticipated what that date would come to signify. So it's been, for me, we were trying desperately to get people to talk about teacher wellbeing before March 2020. And the book was part of that, wanting to start a conversation. And it was very hard to get people to talk about it because it was like, yeah, it's nice, but it's an additional extra. And we were arguing, no, it's the foundation of good practice. If your teachers are in the right place, they're going to be the best teacher they can be. What happened with the pandemic is it has made it easier to have that conversation. Everybody recognizes now how important learner and teacher well-being is for successful learning to take place. As we move into, dare I say it, the post-pandemic phase, there you go, Evan, I'm being optimistic now. As we move into this post-pandemic phase, I'm concerned that we don't lose sight of that. It was an issue before the pandemic. The pandemic has just highlighted how important this topic is. And we must maintain the momentum now to take it seriously and discuss it as a core part of good practice, whether that's in the business field or whether that's in state education or tertiary, it doesn't matter.
I see. Lovely. Now, going back to IATEFL, congratulations on becoming our IATEFL ambassadors.
Thank you. How lovely.
Evan, what does that mean exactly?
Well, actually, I was very surprised to be asked, but it really is a role, I think, which is about building awareness for IATEFL outside IATEFL's walls, as it were, and so. It gave me the chance actually to start thinking about talking about IATEFL in some of the places I go to, because I've got one foot in ELT, English language teaching, but I've got another foot in corporate language training and corporate training in learning and development in companies and so on. So I go to sometimes quite different conferences, and I meet people there who are involved in language teaching, but who may not be particularly focused on IATEFL or on traditional ELT, because they've got their this division between the two worlds, as it were. So it's given me a chance, I think, to build awareness in those sorts of areas and talk to people. And I think the other thing is, because I've worked on a couple of committees, etc., and I know what it means to get involved, and I know about the benefits of getting involved, and I think it's good to be able to meet people and encourage them to get involved and reap the benefits that come from getting involved. And people don't really know that. You can read a website, but until somebody actually says to them, look, when I was in your shoes, I did this, and this is where it got me, and that helps. And so that's what I see my role as an ambassador being, really, spreading the word and encouraging people. Yeah, I don't know if Sarah's got similar ideas.
I have nothing to add. You said everything perfectly, but that's true. I mean, IATEFL's been hugely important to me. It's been, I still consider it my home association. It's where I started in my career. It's where I've made friendships. It's where I've built up a community, a network of people that I connect with. And it's very much where I feel at home, is the best way to describe it. And if I think how much IATEFL has given me professionally, but, you know, dare I say in terms of well-being, feeling that you're part of the IATEFL family, that's just so precious and so valuable, and it does sustain you when, you know, everybody has their ups and downs in their professional lives, and having that community and those people to connect with is incredibly valuable, and wanting to share that with others and encourage others to join the IATEFL family is a big part of this role, I think.
Absolutely. And Sarah, Evan mentioned before mentioned the benefits of joining the IATEFL family. What would you say to the people watching us from home that the benefits are of joining the IATEFL family?
I suppose it's like I just said, it's a lot to do with having a community. So also, you know, Evan was talking about how the pace of things changing and what's going on in the field. So coming to conference or just following also on Facebook or following some of the things on Twitter, it just helps me to see what things people are talking about, what's going on in the field at the moment, what issues people are confronting in different areas. And it's quite nice to have a big picture view sometimes. So for example, I don't work in the business English field, but I like to follow BSIG sometimes and just see what's being talked about. What are the issues there? The thing about ELF is incredibly interesting to understand how that's making such a big impact at the moment. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity to find out about different areas, also things that are not directly related to your work maybe, but to have that sort of broad overview of the field. And possibly most importantly, it's that human connection. It's getting to know other people, finding out about their work, learning about their work context, and teaching you about what it is that they do, sharing ideas together, and offering support to each other. I think that's why I use the term family and community, because I think that's very much what it is.
Absolutely. Evan?
George, I'd just like to add, I mean, of course, Sarah's absolutely right, but I'd like to add something else, and that is that especially if you're freelance, then the way to get clients, the way to get noticed, the way to get seen by people who will actually pay you later in your life is to do talks at these conferences, is to be known. You know, I've been going to the BSIG conference for years and years and years. There are always people from HR departments there, from companies, looking for talent. That, you know, when I had my own language school or when I was working for a big corporation hiring teachers, that's where I looked for teachers. So it's not only about networking and CPD, you know, developing yourself as a trainer and so on, but it's actually financially potentially a useful place to be. So you know, it's a lot more than just networking with colleagues. It's also meeting potential clients for the future. I guess it's the same, Sarah, with in the academic world. No, I mean, you go to conferences because you might be invited to be a professor in another university or something like that.
Yeah, possibly. I think also it's in very practical terms. If you want to do research, it's great to have people to cooperate with, and particularly if you're interested in any kind of comparative studies, it's great to have people to connect with. And also, you know, and this is quite important to me, and this could open a whole can of worms for conversation, I think, but it's great to have a place where academics and teachers can come together. And I do think that IATEFL still can be that space, despite the pressures on both sides for different purposes and agendas. But IATEFL is a wonderful place where you can come and find out about research and share research or cooperate on research. It's a great place where teachers and researchers can come into dialogue and find out, you know, how it works and how they perceive the same issue. So I think that's also a very valuable contribution that IATEFL makes in that regard.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. One question that I haven't asked you yet is how did your IATEFL journey begin? So, Evan, let's start with you.
You want to show our age here?
Who would you like to, Georgia? Who would you like to?
Evan, let's start with you.
Okay. I started in 1993, actually, when I started going to BSIG conferences. I was in business English teaching. I heard about the SIG, the Special Interest Group for Business English, and went to that. And last week I was at my 30th in a row, 30 annual conferences, only 2 of which were online because of COVID. And I really think they should have given me a T-shirt, but I didn't get a T-shirt. But anyway, so that's been a very big part of my life. But of course, there are many other SIGs I've been to over the years. And of course, the big conference, the IATEFL conference over the years. So yeah, I've been doing this pretty much regularly for the last 30 years. Yeah, that's been my
And Sarah,
thing.
what about you? Yeah.
You're going to ask me for dates, and I just don't know, is the honest answer. John will be able to spy on me in the files for how long I've been a member. When I was a teacher, I didn't know about IATEFL. I found out about IATEFL when I started doing my PhD. And it was my supervisor. For those of you who know, my dearly beloved Alan Waters was my supervisor, somebody who I value, I value and treasure enormously. So a wonderful gentleman, and he introduced me to IATEFL and suggested that I go. And I'm not sure, but I think my very first IATEFL could have been at Harrogate, but I'm not entirely sure. My memory plays tricks on me now. But so I went to the conference, fell in love with the conference, fell in love with all the opportunities that it offered. And this was also before the online component of IATEFL really came alive. It was early days. And I stayed with it. I got involved also, like Evan. I worked in one of the SIGs. I became a SIG coordinator. And that also gives you a whole different perspective and connection to the association, because you understand a little bit more about behind the scenes, and you become very invested in the association and its development and its success, and something that has remained with me till this day. So the chance to be an ambassador was wonderful, because it really did help me build on that connection that I still strongly feel.
Incredible. I mean, for me, whenever I go to the conference, it's the adrenaline of having to go from one session to the other and all of the options that you have. What is something that you really absolutely love in the conference every time you go?
Probably reading the program beforehand, normally at the last minute beforehand, and then being really surprised and excited by what's going to be on offer, and then having to spend a little bit of time planning how I'm going to spend the conference. And then after that, you arrive at the conference, and then suddenly you look around and it's over. It's almost like that. And there are so many different events, from the plenaries to the SIG events to the open forum. There's just so many. I mean, I wouldn't like to say one is better than any other. I think it's always good. That's how I would say. Sarah, would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely right. And actually, I was just thinking the exact same thing. My favorite thing is getting the conference program and picking and choosing and thinking, oh, which one shall I go to? You know, because there's always more things I want to go to than I can possibly attend. Always. And that's a real luxury position to be in, that you've got so much to choose from. And yeah, that getting the program and being able to see who's doing what and what's being talked about, that's just lovely, being able to plan that and then look forward to it.
Absolutely true. Now, one last question I have got for you. So, drawing closer to 2023, what are your projects for next year? Sarah, let's start with you.
I've got a couple of projects ongoing. So I'm finishing up 2 books at the moment that are in the final stages of being finished up. And there's one that I'm sort of a little bit stuck on in the middle just because I've run out of time, but I'm going to really invest in it next year. And they're all related to various aspects of teaching aspects of global skills and language teaching. So things like teaching eco-literacy and language teaching, teaching compassion, global citizenship, how these issues relate to language teaching, and also issues about how teachers can develop that relational climate in the classroom. So it's all in that kind of area.
Oh, lovely. And Emma, what about you?
I've got a couple of books bubbling away as well. They may come to fruition or not, I'm not sure. But I think most of my projects tend to be at the moment on working on this consulting side. So working with companies, trying to, you're there as a problem solver. They have a problem. They need to communicate with their customers or whatever. And you sit down with a number of stakeholders and try and find a solution. And it's always unique. It's always completely different. And it's always exciting. And so my world tends to be composed of 2 or 3 of these projects bubbling along at any one time. And that's what I expect to be happening over the next few months. Yeah.
Oh,
but
wonderful.
probably not a lot of flying. Hopefully, flying seems to have become less part of our lives. I think in the last few years.
Oh, I
We'll
can't
see.
wait, really. And I can't wait to meet you both in IATEFL next year.
Likewise, look forward to meeting you in person.
Look forward to it.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, thank you. Well, thank you very much for your time today. It's been lovely to talk with you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invite.
I just like the fact they can't just do one book, but they have got books bubbling away. It's just like amazing. So thank you so much for your time, both of you. I'm going to drop you out of the thread now. Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you, Georgie. You sound like you got a cold. You're right. You got,
Yes. Last time you had COVID. Now,
now,
it's
yes, this kind of swap over. I'm glad you got through that. So, Georgie, you know that you've got to get 2 books on the go. So next time you interview people, you can keep up with everybody else. I'm just going to put on the screen there was a couple of mentions of different SIGs there. Obviously, Evan talked about the business English special interest group, and Sarah made mention lots of research. There, of course, IATEFL has 16 special interest groups, and they're all of them there. So if you are new to IATEFL or not sure what we do, apart from the main organisation itself, then there are these special little areas which you can go if you're interested in. Obviously, at the main events, you get all those contacts that Evan and Sarah were talking about. But if you do have a particular interest in one of those areas, then there are the special interest groups that are there for us. Georgia, I shall drop you out of it and let you go have a good rest of the day. So there we go. So now we've met our first 4 ambassadors. I say first 4 because this will be an ongoing project in IATEFL, and do look as we go through into 2023 and beyond for more ambassadors joining us. We've got Sarah and Evan and obviously George and Sandy. And if you missed the interviews with George and Sandy, if you go to the YouTube channel or the Facebook page, you should be able to see the interview with them last month. And I'll look forward to seeing those in person next year, and thank them for their time now. I think that's pretty much it for this live stream. We will be back in early 2023. Just to remind you that the early bird deadline for Harrogate is the 11th of January. See, I did pay attention, John. And if you are interested in any events coming up from the special interest groups and IATEFL, as John said at the beginning, go to the IATEFL webpage, iatefl.org/events, and you'll be able to see it there. If you are watching the recording of this and there are questions or anything that come up, do feel free to put them into the Facebook comments page. We do look at the comments for the rest of the week to see if there are any questions that have come up, so you can go there and see it then. And that's about it. We will see you, as I said, in early 2023 with our next live stream. Until then, stay safe and look forward to seeing you next year. Goodbye for now.